Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Fiction. My name is Melanie McNair. I'm the Senior Director of Public Programming here. How many of you are visiting us for the first time this evening? Oh my goodness, so many of you. Well, you are very welcome. The Center for Fiction is the only literary nonprofit that focuses on the creation and enjoyment of fiction. Why are we doing an event with a playwright? Because we love storytelling in all of its forms. We have reading groups, writing workshops, and lots of other things, so please go to our website and check us out and sign up for our mailing list. And if you'd like to support our work, consider becoming a member. For those of you who are joining, or for those of you who are here, we will have a brief Q&A at the end, and please raise your hand and one of our interns will bring a microphone to you. That's so the people who are watching on the live stream can hear your question as well. And if you're on the live stream, you can type your question in the chat at any time, and we'll try to get to a couple of those too. Arts, since we moved to the Cultural District of Brooklyn in 2019, we've been thrilled to partner with Theater Communication Group Books to bring many of the best working playwrights onto our stage, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to their co-publisher, Kathy Sova.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So thanks for coming tonight. I am Kathy Sova, co-publisher and editor of TCG Books. I just want to say a little bit about Theater Communications Group. We do such great work, and we do have a really full program, so I'm going to go as fast as possible, so I might not say all the great stuff we do. But TCG is the national organization for the theater field with about 700 theaters as members and 7,000 individual members. Through our many programs, we reach more than 1 million theater practitioners every year. We hold conferences, we organize advocacy in Washington, we provide grants, we publish the Arts Job Bulletin Art Search and American Theater Magazine. Then there's the book program. We commit to playwrights, not a particular hot play, say, and we keep all of our authors' work in print. Because of this model, we've had the pleasure of working with some playwrights for 30 years, and Tony Kushner is one of those writers. We've published more than 10 books for Tony and a similar number for Susan Laurie, Parks, Lynn Nottage, Paula Vogel, Sarah Rule, and many more. And we continually bring on new authors, providing the same dedication to them as well, such as Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, Annie Baker, Alicia Harris, Jeremy O'Harris, Michael R. Jackson, Will Arbery, many more. Tonight's event is focused on the Intelligent Homosexual's Guide to Capitalism and Socialism with a Key to the Scriptures, otherwise cleverly nicknamed iHo. I don't really think Tony needs an introduction, but he's the author of numerous plays, including, I'm sure as we all know, Angels in America, for which he was awarded the Pulitzer Prize. He's a screenwriter, essayist, deep thinker, and wonderful human being. He was awarded the National Medal of Arts Award by President Barack Obama. Of this play, The Nation said, at a time when citizens feel trapped in the eternal present of the 24-hour news cycle, iHo's big argumentative poetry screams out that history matters. Tony will be in conversation with Isaac Butler. Isaac's an author. His most recent book, The Method, How the 20th Century Learned to Act, was a winner of the 2023 National Book Critics Circle Award for Nonfiction. He's also the co-author with Dan Coyce, The World Only Spins Forward, The Ascent of Angels in America. He's working on his third book, The Perfect Moment, The Religious Right, American Art, and the Dawn of the Culture Wars. He's been published in The New Yorker, The New York Times, The Guardian, and Slate, for which he co-hosts a podcast called Working. Tony has gathered our greatest actors here today to read from iHo: F. Murray Abraham, Linda Emond, James Cusati-Moyer, and Ben Shenkman. Lastly, but very important to me, I do want to thank the Center for Fiction, whom we've been partnering with for 5 years. We've had great events here from our first in 2019 with Jackie Sibley's Jury and Claudia Rankin, up to James Imes and Jonathan McCrory in October of 2023. These events live in the CFF's online archive. And I want to thank our founding publisher, Terry Nemeth, who's here tonight. This great Yes, please. I know he's probably so mad at me. This great book publishing model really does rest on his shoulders, and I want to thank Aaron Salvi, our co-publisher, and editors Emma Walsh and Vero Diaz, and all my colleagues at TCG who really do work extremely hard all the time. And much thanks to the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs and Mellon Foundation. They really are very generous to TCG, and especially the book program. So thank you all for being here, and we'll start the good stuff.
Oh, you want us on?
Yeah, come.
Turn your mics on. Turn your mics on. Okay. Hi.
I'm getting a very Okay, so thank you for coming. So the order of events, we're going to do some scenes, and then Isaac and I are going to talk. So, and I wrote a little explanatory thing before we start reading the scene, so that those of you who haven't seen the play or saw it when it was on in 2010, which was a long time ago, and there's been a lot since then, so you may have forgotten everything about it. I'm just going to tell you quickly a little bit about the play and introduce the scene. So the play takes place in Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn, over a single weekend from June 15th to the 17th, 2007, in the brownstone that belongs to Gus Marcantonio. Gus is a third-generation longshoreman who worked at the Brooklyn waterfront. He's been a lifelong member of the International Longshoremen's Union and also a lifelong member of the CPUSA, the Communist Party. In 1972, the ILU went on a strike, and after a bitter struggle, won a guaranteed annual income, but only for the senior members of the union, including Gus. Since that time, Gus has volunteered as a union organizer, but in recent years, he's retreated to his brownstone, he's taught himself Latin, and he's translating the epistles of the Roman poet Horace. A year before the play begins, Gus slit his wrists in his bathtub, then got out of the bathtub and wandered out into the backyard of the brownstone, where he was found by his daughter's ex-husband, who lives in Gus's basement. Since then, Gus has shared the brownstone with his sister Cleo, who is a former discalced Carmelite nun turned Maoist guerrilla. It's less far-fetched than it sounds, but you have to read it. Now exploring the writings of Mary Baker Eddy, founder of Christian Science. The play begins a year after Gus's first suicide attempt at the arrival at the family brownstone of his 3 adult children. Pill, which is short for Pierre Luigi, Empty, short for Maria Teresa, and V, short for Vito. Vito is named after Gus's cousin, Vito Marcantonio, the real-life 6-term radical left congressman from East Harlem. An amazing figure. If you don't know about him, you should know. He's just an astonishing figure. You'll hear Gus mention Vito Marcantonio when he says that he was young. He worked at night for him. He means Congressman Marcantonio, whose picture hangs in Gus's living room. Gus has summoned his kids in the summer of 2007 to tell them that he's going to commit suicide, this time successfully. So here are 3 excerpts. Everybody clear about that, right? So here are 3 excerpts, scenes from the play. After Gus's announcement that he's going to commit suicide, Empty, his daughter, who is the closest of all of his children to Gus, descends to the basement apartment to visit her ex-husband, Adam. Adam asks Empty during this conversation what she thinks Gus actually wants. And here, to give Empty's answer, is my good friend, the divine Linda Emond.
It's hard to say what he wants, because he's trained himself not to have an image in his head about what that is, what that'll be when it arrives. He doesn't need to know what he wants. He needs to know what he wants to happen. What he cares about is process, not some distant, dreamy, far-off goal. He knows that he was born to help sweep it all away, profit and exploitation, and more than that, he wants to change everything. How things get done, why we act, who's doing the acting, who we are, how we understand ourselves, all our assumptions, the ones that lie in us marrow deep, that help shape our actions. He wants all of that to change. Nothing else matters to him, because what he knows is that nothing else suffices, only complete transformation, revolution. And there's a profound faith in that, you know, in his willed blindness to consequence. There's a profound belief in people in him, and I love that about him. Maybe more than anything else about him, his undefeated faith in a human future that will come only when the leap is made, with the requisite ferocity and strength and ruthlessness, or no, he isn't, with intelligence. He believes the world will be made just, as fair, and as human as possible. How much is possible doesn't concern him. He won't allow that to dishearten him. That doesn't make him a joke.
Thank you. The brownstone immediately gets crowded with people, including Empty's current partner, Maeve, who's gotten pregnant with sperm donated by Empty's younger brother, V. That's a long story. And eventually, Empty and Gus are finally alone together. It's their first chance to talk since Gus's announcement about the suicide. And Linda's going to read. Empty and Gus will be read by promising newcomer, the legendary F. Murray Abraham.
You shouldn't be so angry at your aunt.
You think maybe this isn't the right moment for you to lecture me about anger?
I'm not angry.
Oh, come on.
I'm not.
Stop it already. Jesus Christ. What's going on with you?
But if you keep barking at me, you could get me angry.
All right. Last June, when you got up out of the bathtub,
Yeah?
if you just stayed in the water 10 more minutes, we wouldn't be talking now.
Yeah.
Why didn't you? Something made you stand up, get yourself out into the garden.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I hadn't thought it through. I iced my wrists like you're supposed to numb the pain. That didn't work. And I lay there, bleeding. This is how I remember it. And it was like I was in a dream of joy.
Oh, Dad.
And an absolutely wild strength. Dear God, how long since I felt that? This was like 1951. My first year in Local 1814, I lifted heavy crates all day. No, we lifted them. And it only made me stronger. I was young. Then up to East Harlem all night to work for him. Incredible thoughts went through my head. I thought, this isn't dying. Not like I expected. I thought that this is how it'd feel to be, I don't know how to say it, in the future. Yeah, there I said it. The force of it, that dream. But then I had to get up out of that tub. It was for you that I did that.
Huh.
That was for you. I had to try to explain. You have to understand. It might help you after.
Help me? So explain it.
You don't want to understand. You just want to stop me.
Of course.
So you'll pretend to listen. You could understand if you wanted to, but
That's not comprehension, that's obedience.
Consent.
To your suicide. I mean, you never imagined that I'd agree to you killing yourself. You couldn't. You know, I'd never.
Yeah? That's that then.
No. Wait. Slow the fuck down. Give me a... I've been thinking. You could have done anything. once you got the guaranteed annual income, you had time to do whatever you wanted to do. But instead of law school or a classics degree even, you organized night and day for them for no pay, trying to keep union membership up, all those meetings and stupid baseball games, even though
there were successes.
Even though history's been against you since the 80s, Reagan and the air traffic controllers, permanent replacement workers, right to life, right to work laws and containerization, globalizing, all the ground that's been lost. You kept going, but you were losing the party, Dad, the whole time. Or something much more important, the theory, Marx, the method, that abandoned you.
The fuck it did.
It's led you to
Dialectical
defeat
materialism?
and
You think
despair. We agree about so much. We both work with working people organizing themselves into power, into meaning, making meaning.
Yeah, but we mean entirely different things by doing it, you and me.
And you stopped doing the work, and I haven't. So if the method's still valid, doesn't that suggest you've made an error of belief somewhere? Shouldn't you, Lenin, begin again at the beginning, rethink, use the time you have, whatever time that is, get back to work, organizing, work every moment till you can't anymore, and
Yeah, good. And what?
Without an expectation that the working class will rise up to its historical role as agent of,
Revolution. Give up revolution.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, why not?
It's a totem word, revolution. It's a magic charm, admit it.
Why not? Maybe I can get a few Mexican dishwashers to sign union membership cards, even though they don't have green cards. Or I can go to law school like you and work on the 97th failed attempt to get a meaningful national minimum wage.
Oh, fuck you.
Oh, or whatever's eating up all your time these days.
It's just a fancy name.
Whatever it
People
is
give
made
for
you so
hope, something
busy
to
you
avoid
can't cross
clarity
the
and
river,
rigor
pick up
about how change.
I know. It's hard
I
effort.
should've.
No, doing what you
But
do.
that's not-
It's dissing. It's good. It's good. Yeah. But everything you do leaves it all intact and comfortable for the people you think you're fighting, but also for you. And yes, it's soft. You know I think that, so why not say it? It's why we haven't really talked substance in years. Everyone profits. Even the Mexican dishwashers, they get to stay here like cockroaches and toil for some minimum, and it's gruesome. But it beats the fuck out of slave labor in the Juarez maquiladoras.
The kind of work I do, you can mock it all you want. You can call me a revisionist, call me Edward fucking Bernstein. But constructing, amending, altering, I'll take my chances that it'll maybe ultimately accomplish the New Deal. The Wagner Act.
Yeah, the Wagner Act.
The
And
Voting
then
Rights Act. The
Act.
Brown decision. Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, Roe.
The Air and Water
wait
Act.
another year or two.
EFCA, which
Another
is what
Supreme Court appointment or two.
None of that's progress. None of that's meaningful. Are you really going to...
Nothing changes. Nothing. What you call progress, I call the prison rebuilding itself, thickening the walls. You say I can't imagine you'd consent to me killing myself? Why wouldn't I imagine it? When what you've consented to is so much worse. You walked out on everything I taught you. But
While you stayed where you were when you were 15, stuck in a circumscribed, prescribed, tight little arena of formulaic cant people half as bright as you walked out on after the 20th Party Congress 2 years before I was born. Would it kill you to consider some other? Because this rigidity, that's what's killing
I
me.
tried to make you my companion, my comrade. You always, from when you were a baby practically, you understood so much. And you understood that I was too greedy for you. So you left me. And all that I knew and had taught you, all of it rejected. And then when you ran out of ideas to reject, and method, and strategy, and communion to reject, then even
What? Men? Oh, don't.
Look, I'm alone in this prison, and you're alone in yours. I knew I had to tell Vin about the house and see Pill. I guess all the good that ever did. Maybe it only has to mean what it means to me. Me alone.
You're driving everyone away. That's your plan.
Later. I'm busy.
He leaves the room and climbs the stairs. Empty follows him into the foyer and then up the stairs behind him.
This woman, Cleo, told us about her, that you'd met. Michelle? Cleo said she was going to help you. Is that?
Gus goes into his room and closes his door firmly. Empty stands on the landing outside the door. She calls through it.
Who is she? Can I come in? Please let me in.
End of scene.
What'd you say? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so a little more explanation. The reason Empty's partner, Maeve, has been impregnated with V's sperm is that Empty gave $30,000, which she and Maeve had saved to buy sperm-baked sperm with, to Pill, Empty's brother, Gus's eldest child. Pill needed the money to pay Eli, a hustler Pill secretly had been spending a lot of time with. Maeve, at the time, was completing her doctoral dissertation at Columbia University Union Theological Seminary's graduate theology program, and Pill's husband, Paul, a tenure-track professor there, was Maeve's dissertation advisor. When Maeve discovers that Empty has given the sperm money to Pill, in addition to asking V to provide the sperm, Maeve tells Paul about Pill's costly dalliance with Eli. In an effort to save their marriage, Paul gets a new teaching job at the University of Minnesota and demands that Pill go with him to Minneapolis. Pill goes with Paul, abandoning Eli. This is all before the play starts. This happened a year ago, before the play begins, right before Gus's suicide attempt. Now, a year later, with Gus threatening suicide again, Pill has returned to New York. And the first thing he does is to ask Eli to see him. And that's the last scene that we're going to do tonight. This is Act 1, Scene 4, with my old pal, the always magnificent Ben Shenkman as Pill, and an actor I first saw in Jeremy O. Harris's masterpiece slave play, the wonderful James Cusati-Moyer. Pill and Eli are in Eli's small studio apartment, a single room really in an SRO, a sink but no bathroom on West 48th Street between 8th and 9th Avenues in Manhattan. The room's largely taken up by Eli's bed, on which Eli is lying. He's slowly counting $600 worth of $20 bills. Pill is standing by the door, watching Eli doing this.
I haven't read any of this in a long time, since not even college. Summer camp.
You read Marx at... Okay. So, go.
A worker puts his life into what he makes.
How?
By making it, by working. His labor, his productive life goes into making objects. His labor remains in the objects in the form of value. It becomes objectified outside of him. His life is objectified outside of him.
Oh, okay.
Eli finishes counting the money.
$600?
You sure you wanna?
Since man is estranged from his own labor, estranged from himself, he expresses this as everything human is expressed, according to Marx, in relationships. His self-alienation is expressed as alienation from other men.
Yeah, all right, yeah. Oh, so, all right, yeah, that's interesting.
The damage the damage of hustling, that you're commodifying your deepest self, your capacity for giving and receiving love, romantic love, that you're turning that capacity within into a thing for sale. You become remote from your own.
No, not that. It's like, it's interesting like that if you turn tricks, you're selling the alienated self. You know what it's not like an iPhone your labor life is trapped in. Like, I get that's bad. Like, I built this building I can't afford an apartment in, right? You know what I mean? It's not the building or the iPhone, it's you. That's the thing they buy. You don't make this thing. You make yourself into a thing.
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
No, you were like judging.
A particularly acute instance of a general affliction.
Yeah, right. No, that's just what I mean. Acute affliction. But if you don't get distracted by, sentiment. Oh, I lost it. No, wait. It's exactly not that you buy this thing that has alienated worker life hidden in it, not concealed, but right there. You buy the alienated worker, the alienation, right? You want to fuck the alienation or get fucked by it. The whole process of what did you call it? A commodity?
Fetishism.
Cool. Like, if it's an affliction, a sickness, that process, you want to buy the process. Not a boy, but a thing like a boy. In whom it's transparent. The affliction. Is that what you want, Bill?
You're not a boy. You're like what? You must be at least 20.
Boy, man, guy, rent, boy, hooker, whatever. What do you want?
Whatever you are.
What I'm not is damaged. That is stupid, I think. It's just an easy cliche. I'm not even sure I'm a hustler.
You are.
No, I mean, when you first found me last year, what was in my
2 years ago.
Craigslist? I never said generous men, massage, or that I'm into older dudes, any of that code. I said, I forget now, that...
Squeeze my tits and I'll come on your chest. Which was pretty heartbreaking, breathtaking. In combination with the picture and the line from Robert Duncan.
I have raised myself from darkness in your rising, wherever you are. Thank you, Yale. The 4 long years not entirely in vain. I knew if someone knew where that was from, You left the money when we were done, and I think that's maybe
stupid.
What's freaking you
out.
I can see
that this room, if I was going to see you again, that gratuity
for sex.
was...
I think that the money is a... Okay, that's cool. That's cool. And maybe it turns me on too. Ever think of that? Being paid for it? I mean, who's to say that this is an expression of our self-estrangement instead of maybe it's an aphrodisiac, an enhancement, role-playing. I mean, just because it's money doesn't mean it's bad. Just because something's hidden doesn't mean it's bad. Some people like to be blindfolded. Sometimes you like me to snap you around. You know, I don't really want to, but you like it, so I get into it. The game. I mean, why is that different from plays or poems or anything metaphoric?
But it isn't any of those things, Eli. It's really real. You're a hustler. I'm an old dude, a John. You could buy an iPhone for that.
Well, I got one already, so.
Okay. This is not a game, Eli.
Yeah, I know. I'm not a thing. I'm not damaged, Pill. I know I'm not.
He takes a cigar box from under his mattress. He puts the money in it.
I got a job interning at MTV. After you left from Minneapolis, I got invited to a party where Bob Dylan didn't show. Then I was in a program for junior translators at the UN, but
Translation, but you don't speak any other language.
it just wasn't, I couldn't swing it. But in a friend, I had a friend in an ABC, well, he said he had an in an ABC, he said he did anyway, but like, I don't know, I should have stayed at MTV, which didn't pay, but, you know. Pensa kin popolo finto straziato per te soltanto risorge più.
Someone took you to the opera.
It was awesome. That little bit, especially that her father sings to her, it was like I couldn't stop, you know? It moved me, and afterwards I borrowed a CD, and
He returns to the cigar box and takes out a CD of opera, the whole opera jewel box, and he hands it to Pill.
I found that line, and I memorized it.
You borrowed his CD. Sing it again. Why'd you memorize it?
I have a fantastic memory.
No, but why?
Well, you obviously have a theory, so.
What does it mean?
Well, you know what it means. You speak Italian. Oh, cool. Yeah. You think it was for you.
Was it?
Consider that a people defeated, tormented.
Risorge
you
può.
alone. They rise again.
Would you let me smack you around?
Do you want to?
Do you let other men smack you around? Whip you?
Sure.
Tie you up? Burn you? Strangle you? Barebacking?
It's turning you on. I don't have money, Pill. I can't just borrow money from my sister. I have to earn. Oh, and by the
But you
way,
have a
I
sister.
cost
You have a
$300
sister.
an
I thought you
hour.
would
So
you have
all
to
that
do-
money that you gave me, calculating at my hourly rate, the business I lost.
You
spending my
raised
time
your
with
rent.
you.
So what, you turned
$30,000
professional
doesn't
full-time, I guess you-
begin to. You didn't begin to pay for.
Are you
sleeping
advertising
over.
on
Sleeping
escorts
over's
now?
like $1,000.
He takes his iPhone out of his pocket, sits on the edge of the bed, his back to Pill, he starts texting.
You have to leave. I have stuff to do in the morning. You should.
Look at you. You can type on glass.
I'm remarkable.
Who you calling?
Nobody.
Let me see. God damn it. Party and play. That's meth, right? Or
Oh, I fucking knew it. I knew it. I fucking knew I shouldn't.
Up
You're
for
a
anything.
fucking hypocrite.
Are you out of your
You make me
mind?
feel terrible about myself, about what I do.
Good.
Lecturing
Good.
me
You're
about my
putting yourself
mental
in terrible,
hygiene,
terrible
which is like, I don't know,
risk.
ironic or
Jesus.
something.
I had no idea.
Totally, you disappear on me, and then you show up.
I disappear.
You expecting me
You
to. All
stop
I did
answering my
was
calls,
stop
my
answering your
emails,
incessant
it's
phone
been
calls.
6
You
months
creepy old
of
stalker.
silence.
You fucking ran off
and
to Milwaukee.
It's Minneapolis. You know I had to. You know I did.
Why? Why? Because that super tense, psycho-possessive queen you're married to got some job out there to keep you
This was
away
bankrupting
from
me. It was killing
and
Paul.
you went.
And he's my husband. Paul is my husband.
Oh, yeah, right. You remember that every once in a while, usually after you come. Funny thing, memory, huh? Your vows. You stay married to him because it makes us so fucking filthy, me or whichever whore you're patronizing in Minneapolis, but it's like so much less awesome or uniquely evil or whatnot. It's not like every other middle-aged queer who pays me doesn't have a special someone tucked away, sexual collateral in their boner bank. And the older and uglier, the more likely it is that, oh, well, don't call me at home. Don't act like we've met if we run into each other and in a bar or at some dumb musical, But yeah, blow me.
Paul and I are trying to recover what we had, reconnect sexually.
Oh, good luck. I met him. He's like conflicted.
He isn't. He's actually sort of great. He
threatened me. He was going to
very
fag
upset.
bash
He
me.
loves me. He didn't want me to.
Yeah, then why didn't he beat you up?
He did. I mean, we had a
Physical?
No, he just slapped me hard. He left the hand-shaped bruise. In 26 years, he never won. He lost control.
That's fucked up.
Even my therapist thinks I had it coming. Okay.
Eli takes the $600 out of the box.
Okay, so if you and Paul are... What's this?
I do love you, Eli. You must know that.
You love him. You moved out of your cool Upper West Side, like 10-room, rent-controlled,
University housing was like
apartment,
4.
and you went to this place where it was in January, something like 23 below in broad daylight for a week.
You checked? Online?
You don't love me that way. You're the one pill playing games. That's what this is. That's what this it's a game for you. It keeps us a game and an abstraction.
All right. I should go. I'm lost here.
Yeah. I think you're crying for your dad. I think maybe you should be in Brooklyn taking care of him. I mean, it must be like, I can't even imagine that. And he's your father. You came out of his dick, sort of. He injected you into the womb, into the world. So he's tremendous to you. Tremendous. I missed you. I did, I missed how you kiss me. I missed that you'd say, how intelligent I am and how unlike other hustlers I am.
You are not. You missed the money. All that money.
I love you, Bill. I was very messed up without you, and I've been, but I don't think I want to. Never mind.
You don't want to. What?
I always imagined you'd see it in someone's eyes if they really meant it. meant to die.
What would you see?
I don't know. There'd be some kind of light in there.
Light.
You know, the other shore.
Peel kisses Eli. Eli reciprocates cautiously at first, then it starts to heat up. They grope and claw at each other's bodies and clothing. Then Eli stops. He pulls away. He stands, his back to Pill, and he turns and steps back.
So, like, marry me.
I don't. What?
It doesn't have to be forever. I mean, but which, by the way, nothing is. You and Paul, it's a total deathbed. You're pals. You're afraid to look at it. At what you guys have wound up with that expresses your self-estrangement, what you're sold for, safety. Money's not the only currency.
For pity's sake, Eli, what are you talking about?
It'd be insane. Pay for me. My radiance. Not to rent, to own. I mean, what do you work for now? Therapy sessions? Work to afford me to keep.
You're terrifying.
I am. Or what's hidden beneath the surface? Us. The coolest thing about the Marxist shit is permission. You just change your angle of sight and then there's something new, which before there was only sadness. You want to be sad all your life?
What's left of it?
Is that a wish? You want to kill yourself, Bill? Just like your dad? You aren't old and ugly. I just said that. I think all the time, when I think about you, all the time, I don't want to be sad and angry for the rest of my life. I don't want to die.
I don't want you to die.
Then
Eli undresses. Pill doesn't move. Watching him, Eli stops.
what are you doing?
Thinking.
End of scene. So that's a hand for all of you. I think they set seats for you guys there. Or
Yeah. All right. You won't jump down.
Amazing. There we go. Amazing. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. That was amazing. It was wonderful to hear out loud. Holy crap. Tony, I'm so happy to be here talking about this extraordinary play with you. Let me get out my book. When we spoke for The World Only Spins Forward, you talked about how Angels in America,
Yes.
it started with the image of the angel coming into Pryor's room, and these sort of things you were circling about Mormons and AIDS and Roy Cohn, and you didn't know how they were going to go together, and the process of writing the play was kind of discovering what connects those. And in this, there's a very similar thing. You've got the labor movement. You have Carol Garden's Italian communism, homosexuality, the obscure relatives of the relatives of a now obscure but important congressman. You've got Mary Baker Eddy in there. You've got the writing of Horace. Now that you're on the other side of having written and rewritten this play, what was the impulse that drove you to those things, and how did it shape the work going forward?
The first thing that,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 67 years old, so I'm at the point now where sometimes I think that I remember something, and sometimes I am not sure that I remember it, or somebody told me about it. So I'm not sure about this. I had a friend who was a Berliner who may have told me, but I think this happened. I think I was with her when this happened in the 1980s. It was. I guess in the early 90s, because it was right when the wall came down, and we were in what had been East Berlin, right near Potsdamer Platz and the Schaubühne, Brecht's theater. And it was like at 2 a.m, and there was this old man walking down the street with this huge bottle of vodka, screaming in German, "Fuck you, I'm a communist. Fuck you, fuck everybody, I'm a communist." And then he threw the bottle and it smashed. It was like, what is it? And that image, I thought there's something about that. There's a play in that. I have read a lot about Leon Trotsky, and a lot about the sort of terrifying moments of Lenin's death and the emergence of Stalin, and these sort of feeble efforts that various people were making, including Lenin himself, to kind of stop what was coming, to not let Stalin become general secretary, and the way that failed. And a number of people at that moment in Russia who were devout communists committed suicide. And there are some astonishing letters that these people left, including several of them who wrote about understanding the necessity of them committing suicide as a kind of a radical political act. And then I got very deeply into the history of there's a weird history of Marxism and suicide.
Revolutionary suicide.
Revolutionary suicide, and it's just there's a huge, I don't know if there's a single book about it, but I have my own little library of commie suicides and anarcho-communist suicides and stuff. It was like, because these were very dark, very difficult times, of course. And I got very interested in that because on one level, it seems like the absolute betrayal of the whole sort of communitarian ethos of communism and of socialism. It seems like a very private act that's intended to punish those you're leaving behind. So I was sort of interested in that and grappling with that a lot. And the other thing that really started me on, I mean, I had promised, this is all in the book, but I promised Joe Dowling that I would come up with a new play. He wanted to do a festival of my work at the Guthrie Theater, and he called in 2005 and said, can we do this in 2009? But the only thing is, they did Carolina Change, my musical with Janine Tesori, on the Thrust stage, and we did a bunch of one-acts in the studio, and Joe said, for the proscenium, I want a new play. And it was 2005, and I just started working on Lincoln, and I thought, oh, sure, of course, I'll be done with that in a couple of weeks. So I can write a new play, and 2008 rolled around, and I was still working on Lincoln. It was getting longer and longer, and I wasn't getting finished with it. So I wrote, anyway, iHo wound up, Linda can tell you. Anyway, I don't know. But I think it was in 2008, there was the local one, Stagehands Union, went on strike. And I'm in the executive council of the Dramatists Guild, and I won't name names, but we had an emergency meeting of the council and to talk about the Dramatists Guild, which is not really a union. It's as close as playwrights can get to a union because we own our own copyrights and so on. And I was really shocked. I went in. I've been, taught my grandmother, who it turns out was, working at a sweatshop right around the corner from the Triangle factory when it burned down, which was really the beginning of one of the beginnings, maybe the beginning of the American labor movement, where all these people were reacting hard to the Triangle fire. And my grandmother, who was not political in any other way, would not cross a picket line, would if I would pick her up to take her to the bank, she called it the Walt. If she saw people picketing, she would go over and take their leaflets. And, it was like a very big deal for her. And her husband was a glazer, was part of the Glazers Union. They'd been on strike. So this was bred in the bone for me. Right. And I was really shocked. I went in thinking, we're all good, liberal, lefty playwrights. And there were a lot of people who were saying, do you know how much money these stage hands are making? And they have a giant fund to send their kids to school. For the playwrights don't have that. And they're the ones who have driven up the cost of doing plays, because you have to keep these people. If you're doing a one-person show and you don't need anybody backstage, you still have to hire 6 people to be backstage. And you can't just throw them out with the garbage like you should be able. And it was like this. It was a really shocking thing for me that this kind of Reaganite anti-labor, the fundamental concepts of the way that labor is creates wealth and has a moral and economic right to the wealth that it creates, had just kind of vanished. And people who really, in every other way, were completely wonderful people who really had good values about everything, were kind of pissed off that that a stagehand could make $100,000 and live in a fancy house in Long Island. It's like, isn't that the whole point? Isn't that what we're actually trying to do, is to give everybody like a decent living? Why is that a bad thing? And, by the way, let's look at what the theater owners and the fucking New York Times is charging for ads. And we really want to talk about escalating prices. But it's, this stuff, and also the fact that we're now paying actors, nothing great, but they're getting a living wage, as opposed to the good old days when the only people who made money were playwrights, which of course we all miss. So, that was a big, I found myself having the most insane arguments with people and thinking, this is really, and it wasn't that I felt superior to them or anything, but it was like, there's a line that Gus says in the play when he's talking about, he compares, when he's talking about the defeat that he felt after this dockyard workers' strike in 1972, when they only got the guaranteed income for half the union, which destroyed, in a sense, the idea of union. And he talks about this strike, and he says it's crazy. It was written. He's been translating Horace. It's written in a language, a dead language. Nobody understands it anymore. And this idea that we arrive, the human race arrives, or our country arrives, at a profound understanding that you think, okay, so we've now advanced evolutionarily with the Wagner Act, with FDR. For whatever reasons, these things happened, and they weren't all altruistic. They were to save capital. That's what John Maynard Keynes and FDR tried to do, is to save capitalism from a revolution, which they were this close to having in this country. But it created an idea of the right of workers to organize. And you think, okay, we've gained that. And, as we're learning now, almost every week, nothing that we've gained is solid. No right that we think has been established is solid. They'll just come and say, oh, no, actually, we're going to take that back. And it's that, the loss of a kind of an ideological framework with which to understand why you don't have right to work states and so on, is a profound loss. And so I kind of wanted to do that. And I thought it was time to write a gay play, because I hadn't for a long time, and about old gay people, because I was now an old gay person. So all that sort of came together, and I wrote the play in rehearsal.
Yeah.
And it was, I think Michael Greif was going to come tonight, but he can't, because he has one of the 18 musicals he's directing this year on Broadway needed him. But Michael Greif and Linda and this amazing cast, they all agreed to do the play without having seen a single line of it. They got their first scene, second day of rehearsral.
Not the first day of rehearsal.
No,
they got scenes the second day of rehearsal.
They just got me going, oh, don't worry, everybody, it's going to happen. And then the last act arrived at the end of a 10 out of 12. Really, and it was terrible. It didn't work. And it was maybe the worst single experience I've ever had in the theater, was listening to this group of people, many of whom were my friends, reading this thing like it was radioactive waste. It was hideous. And then I went home, and the other thing that I didn't realize is that my father was beginning to fail from kidney disease. He was in his 80s. And I think I was getting ready. I'll just tell, I don't know, I don't want to use up all of our time. But there's one thing that happened when I was at the Guthrie and I was working on it. There was a scene, there used to be a whole thing when all the sort of secondary characters left the kids alone with Gus. And Maeve goes into labor, and there's a car that's been called, and it's outside honking. And when I was writing the scene, I wrote these elaborate descriptions of the horn honking. And then I always write in longhand, and then I type it. And when I was typing it up, I thought, what the fuck? Why did I go into this? The horn sounds like it. And the last one was the horn sounds like a blast from the seventh trumpet. And then I thought, oh, 7. And so I went and I counted it, and there were 7 horn blasts. This is completely unconscious. My father's favorite movie is Ingmar Bergman's Seventh Seal. And so that's when I realized, I was kind of trying to pretend that this play was not in some ways about him and my brother and sister and I, but in some ways it was, and I think that was a big influence on its own.
Yeah, amazing. We actually do need to pivot to audience questions.
Listen, Linda and I were talking. It was so hard doing this play. And I didn't make it any easier. We moved it to the public, and I kept rewriting. Anyway, it was really hard. So everybody who was involved in it has this kind of traumatic PTSD thing. So I don't usually get nervous at these things. I took a Xanax. I was so nervous about this. So now, of course, these guys who are just, amazing actors, I was like, as soon as it was done, I was like, oh, it's right. So now I'm relaxed and I'm,
That's great. No, that's good. That's
blah, 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 blah.
Amazing. Let's take a couple questions from the audience. Right now, we're all relaxed. We're all not. Yes. What's your name, by the way?
Johnny Sagan.
Oh yeah, we gotta wait for the microphone. I've enjoyed watching you drawing. It's very cool.
Okay, 2 questions. Why did you make the family Italian and not Jewish? And why did it take 6 years for the book to come out?
I like the edge that, because it became this running thing on Amazon. It's like, this book is never coming out, is it? And I paid for it. And I don't know why. There's a scene. It's the penultimate scene in the play. It's Act 4, Scene 2. It's Gus and Empty, and it's the moment when Gus finally basically tells Empty why it's so important for her to be there when he kills himself. And I could not get the scene right. And I rewrote it. I've never written any scene as many times as that scene. Not even the epistle in Angels of America.
Not even the epistle?
Not even the epistle. And it was a night. It's just, I couldn't get it. And I think I finally got it. I don't know because I've never heard the scene. It's the only time I've ever done it. And I've published every play that I've written before iHo, in one state, and then I rewrote it, and there were like 4 versions. I don't know, Kathy, how many there are, but there were several versions of Perestroika, the second part of Angels, in print, and I sort of like that. It'll be really confusing for people, and there are at least 4 versions of Hamlet out there, so why not? I mean, we all have, whatever Shakespeare did, it gives us permission. And also, we're going to fail because it was Shakespeare. But anyway, but I could not. That was one reason. The other reason is the enormous amount of overlapping. You heard some of it tonight, brilliantly done. There's one scene where there are 11 people on stage all talking at once. And I really feel that a play, one of the things I love about being a playwright is that you're writing, unlike being a screenwriter, it's a literary form as well as a score for a kinetic staged event. And I love its amphibious nature. I think it's great fun. One of the reasons that I think that Angels has lasted as long as it does is that it's a pretty good read. It's kind of, people tell me that it sort of reads novelistically. And I want my plays to be readable, and you needed to have like a computer to figure out the the overlapping thing. I came up with my own system. We all are indebted for overlapping speech to Carol Churchill, who had her own little dash thing, and I tried to use her system, but it didn't work for this because there are too many people on stage, and it has to be precise.
And even she, like at the end of Mad Forest, it's all columns, and I mean, it's very hard to follow.
Yeah, then people have tried different things. So finally, I came up with a system. Poor Kathy Sova and I went through just 85, I mean, I can't imagine what it cost TCG to try different typographical solutions to that. And I finally just decided on one that I was going to stick with, and I hope it works. But I think it was really basically 4.2. I just couldn't. When I was working on iHo, I was working also on this thing that I've been working on for a long time about Eugene O'Neill, and I was reading his diaries, and he says, I can't remember which play, is it Days Without End, where there's an Italian Catholic in the play, and he goes, why am I suddenly writing about Italians? It's suddenly all I want to do is write about Italians. Partly because I had discovered Vito Marcantonio. Edward Albee told me that he said, oh, you know Vito Marcantonio? I shouldn't be imitating Edward, but he said the first person I ever voted for. I don't know even remember where I encountered Vito Marcantonio, but he's this amazing figure. I mean, he was voted into Congress 6 times and then done in by the Cold War. But I love that story, and I didn't want to write directly about Vito, but so I sort of started thinking about a family that was related to him. And, like The Sopranos, one of the greatest works of art of all time, I mean, human history. I really believe that. I mean, and The Godfather 1 and 2, and you name it, everything. Martin Scorsese. I mean, I love mafia movies, but what gets erased, and it's a shame, is the immense contribution of Italian Americans to left politics. Sacco and Vanzetti. I mean, there are in the entire history of the American left can't be written without reference to the many, many, many Italian Americans who contributed substantially to it. I thought, this would be a good thing to dig into, these people who were, ferocious believers in Gus's grandfather. It turns out, well, I don't want to give anything, but at the end of the play, it turns out that Gus's grandfather was an anarcho-communist, not a communist, and is somebody who, this is not made up. When Gaetano Bresci, an Italian-American mill worker from Paterson, New Jersey, took a boat and went to Italy and shot the King of Italy dead after the King of Italy fired on starving workers who were striking because the price of bread was too high for people to eat. And Umberto Due fired cannons into the crowd and killed hundreds of people. This guy went over, this is in 1907, went over and shot the King of Italy dead. He was an anarchist. He was paid for, his ticket, his gun, were paid for by his fellow mill workers in Paterson, New Jersey. It's an amazing history, and I lived for 13 years. I wrote Angels in America living in Carroll Gardens in Brooklyn. So I grew up with a lot of these people, and there are people who were in the ILU in my building and so on. So it felt like something that I really wanted to dig into, and I hope people continue to explore it. I mean, Vito Marcantonio alone there should be statues of this guy. He's an astonishing figure. So that's why. So.
Other questions? Yeah, back there.
Hi. I'm curious about your use of real-life figures in your play. It's always so specific and always so pertinent to the theme of your play. And I'm wondering about their use and your choice of using that device, how much of them are fictionalized and how much research you've put into them. And yeah, I guess just the importance of your continual use of this throughout all of your works.
Yeah, I'm struggling with that right now with a historical figure that I've kind of identified, who is another person who should be, I can't talk about her right now a lot, but somebody who really should be known by everybody, another great American hero, unsung hero. And I'm writing something where I have to have her do something that she didn't actually do, but I know she would have wanted to do it. Because it's right in with her politics, and it's not something hideous or something. It's so. my rule is that I will never have somebody represent anybody on stage doing something that they wouldn't have done or didn't do. I mean, Roy Cohn bragged endlessly about his ex parte communications with the judge in the Rosenberg trial, and he wanted credit. Publicly, he demanded credit for executing Ethel Rosenberg. So I didn't make that up. I think, my rule for historical fiction is, did it happen? Yes, then it's historical fiction. If it didn't happen, then it's just fiction. Just fiction, but it's fiction. Did it happen exactly this way? Maybe, but maybe not. Then it's historical fiction as opposed to history. But I think that the only thing that you're not allowed to do is to ascribe to really significant historical consequences people and actions that didn't happen. You can't say Larry Kramer will kill me he'll strike me with a lightning bolt, but I don't personally believe that John Wilkes Booth shot Abraham Lincoln because they were both in love with the same soldier from the Pennsylvania Bucktail Regiment, and that.
Right, we call that revisionism, right?
Yes, well, we call it Larry Kramer, but actually, may his name be a blessing for all of us. And probably a migraine. But if you really want the truth about what happened with Lincoln, you must go see Oh Mary at the Lucille Lortel, because Cola Scola has figured out the real gay secret of the whole thing. Anyway, so that's the thing. Sometimes I worry about doing it because I feel like there's a kind of glamour attached to an actual historical figure, and you bring it on stage and it brings a certain kind of power with it. In iHo, Vito doesn't make an appearance. Pill talks about him extensively at one point, and Gus refers to him, and Cleo refers to him a little bit. But he's kind of a figure hanging over this party. He doesn't show up on stage. There are no actual historical figures on the stage, but. It's something that I love to do. I really love history, and you can't make up this shit. I mean, it's just there's so much in history that's mind-bogglingly, amazing, and you want to be able to, I find it great. The person that gave us all permission to do this terrible thing that we're doing is E.L. Doctorow in Ragtime. I mean, I think that was. It's been done before. Alfred Döblin, this wonderful German novelist before the rise of Hitler, wrote these two books about Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht. Why am I blanking on the names of them? 1919 is one. Anyway, they're two historical novels, and he uses Rosa. But that was a long time before Ragtime. But Ragtime came out when I was in high school, or early year in college, and I just everybody adored the book, and Emma Goldman is in there, and so it sort of made it available for people, I think, in a way to do it. And rigorous history is full of aporia. It's full of gaps. There are things that we can't know. There's this meeting between Abraham Lincoln and Ulysses S. Grant in the house called the Peterson House. I forget the name of the house was, but in Petersburg, Virginia, right at the end of the war, they talked for an hour. It's like literally the only hour that Abraham Lincoln ever spent, apart from his sex in the bed with the Bucktail Regiment. But like everything that Abraham Lincoln did when he was in the White House, you know about it. There are like 800 different versions of everything he did. And there's this one mysterious hour with Grant at the very end of the war. And it's like, I would like to have done more of a scene with it in the movie, but just what did they talk about? And I think that's I've said this many times. Many people have said this many times. The whole purpose of art is to resurrect the dead, which means that it's all Orpheus, right? That's why we do it. It's to bring the dead back to life, and which it can't do, so it all fails. But there's a great desire to bring these people back and to have them get up and move around, and Shakespeare did it. So I guess that's why.
Do we have time for one more, or is that kind of it? Oh, we're out. We are out of time. All right, so thank you all so much for coming. Thank you to the man of the hour, Tony Kushner. Thank you to our wonderful actors, to the Center for Fiction, to TCG. Thank you. And we have books. There's books for sale. Signed books for sale. Yeah.
All right, folks, if you want to get your plays personalized, line up here in the center aisle, and Tony will be just on the other side of this wall. Thank you all so much for coming.